Once your IEP team has undertaken appropriate transition assessments, you'll have a lot more information. And the next step is to develop appropriate transition goals. And Julie, what parents really need to understand here is that in the definition in the IDEA, in the federal statute that governs special education, of what an IEP is, once a student is age eligible for transition services, their IEP must include transition goals, or it's not even an IEP, it's in the definition. And so I would argue that if you have a 16-year-old student who has an IEP and that IEP does not have transition goals right in the document, then that student isn't really receiving an IEP. So it's important.
Well, and I can't tell you how many times that I've come across situations whereby the transition isn't even thought about until the senior year. So technically that could mean that lots of people are operating, or students are operating with unduly constituted IEPs, as you would say, Jen?
It's a problem. And so what you want to know is that the IEP, when your student is eligible for transition services, has to have separate transition goals, okay? And those goals, just like all other goals in an IEP, have to be measurable. So you have to be able to take data and figure out whether or not the student is making progress towards those goals over time.
So transition goals are just like all the other IEP goals that you've had from perhaps when your child was younger all the way through to what we're talking about now. Only the focus of those IEP goals are on transition needs. They're above and beyond all of the other IEP goals in your IEP.
That's right. So a good example of a transition goal could be something like Johnny will learn to avail himself of state agencies that work on adult services for students with disabilities. I mean, there's so many things one could focus on depending on the unique needs of the child, but they have to be separate transition goals.